I used to like sit in my room in the corner and just listen to his music on cassette tape.
Cassette tape,
back then.
yep.
For decades, the legacy of Sam Cooke, the legendary soul singer, has been shrouded in mystery and controversy. His untimely death left behind unanswered questions and fueled troubling rumors that have lingered for years. Now, at 71, Cooke's daughter has finally decided to address these lingering suspicions, breaking her silence to confirm the painful truth. This revelation not only sheds light on the darker aspects of her father's life and death, but also offers a poignant reflection on the impact these events have had on his family. Join us to discover the truth of Sam Cooke. Before Sam Cooke's daughter came clean about her father's death, she reminded everyone of her father's once-tarnished legacy. We all have to admit that the voice of Sam Cooke was a force of nature, embodying the elegance and precision of a seasoned boxer in the ring, much like Muhammad Ali's analogy of floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. Cooke's soaring vocals, infused with a unique blend of smoothness and power, were not just a tool for entertainment. They were a means of delivering potent messages that resonated deeply with his audience. In his brief yet impactful career, Cooke not only established himself as one of the greatest vocalists of all time, but he also emerged as a pivotal figure in the musical landscape of the civil rights movement. Sam Cooke's ability to weave his vocal mastery with socially conscious lyrics set him apart as an artist with a mission. His music transcended the boundaries of mere entertainment, becoming a vehicle for expressing the struggles, hopes, and dreams of a generation yearning for change. One of the most significant contributions Cooke made to the civil rights movement was through his iconic song, "A Change Is Gonna Come." Released in mid-February 1964, this powerful anthem became a beacon of hope and a clarion call for reform during one of the most tumultuous periods in American history. "A Change Is Gonna Come" was born out of Cooke's personal experiences with racism and his desire to see a better, more just society. The song's poignant lyrics and soulful melody encapsulated the pain and frustration felt by many African Americans, while also offering a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. Cooke's delivery of the song was nothing short of masterful. His voice, at once tender and commanding, conveyed a depth of emotion that left listeners both moved and inspired. The timing of the song's release was particularly significant. It arrived just as the Freedom Summer of 1964 was about to unfold, a period marked by a concentrated effort to register African American voters in the South, which was met with violent opposition from white supremacists. The summer of 1964 was one of the bloodiest chapters in the civil rights movement, with 6 murders, 29 shootings, 50 bombings, and 60 beatings of civil rights workers occurring during a brutal 14-week period between mid-June and the end of September. Amid this chaos, "A Change Is Gonna Come" served as both a balm for the weary and a rallying cry for those determined to keep fighting for justice. The song's impact on the civil rights movement cannot be overstated. It became an anthem for the movement, capturing the essence of the struggle for equality and the unwavering belief that, despite the immense challenges, change was not only possible, but inevitable. Cooke's ability to articulate the collective yearning for freedom and equality through his music made him a key figure in the movement, and "A Change Is Gonna Come" became one of the most enduring symbols of the fight for civil rights. On June 21, 1964, the nation was shocked by the disappearance of 3 civil rights workers in Mississippi: James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerner. These young men, deeply committed to the cause of racial equality, had been working as part of the Freedom Summer Project to register African American voters in the South. Their disappearance was a stark reminder of the violent resistance to the civil rights movement in the Deep South. It was later revealed that these men had been brutally murdered by members of the Ku Klux Klan, with the complicity of local law enforcement. This horrifying event would become a symbol of the intense opposition faced by those fighting for civil rights and the deeply entrenched racism within the very institutions meant to uphold the law. According to Professor Mary King, approximately half of Mississippi's law enforcement officers were associated with the Ku Klux Klan, highlighting the pervasive influence of white supremacy in the region. Amid this backdrop of violence and oppression, Sam Cooke's song, "A Change Is Gonna Come," emerged as a powerful anthem of hope and resilience. Released in 1964, the song was one of the first in popular music to directly confront the issue of racial inequality, risking the alienation of a white audience that might not have been ready to face such a stark message. Unlike many of the songs that dominated the airwaves at the time, "A Change Is Gonna Come" didn't shy away from the harsh realities of being black in America. Instead, it addressed them head-on, offering a message of hope that change was not only necessary, but inevitable. The origins of "A Change Is Gonna Come" are as poignant as the song itself. In an interview with the BBC, L.C. Cooke, Sam's younger brother and frequent musical collaborator, recounted the inspiration behind the track. He explained that Sam had been deeply moved by Bob Dylan's song "Blowin' in the Wind," which had become an anthem for the civil rights movement. However, Sam also felt a sense of frustration. As L.C. Cooke recalled, "Sam always said a black man should have written 'Blowin' in the Wind.' It was unfair, so he said, 'Now, if he can write a song like that, surely I can come up with something equally as good.'" This sense of urgency and determination drove Sam Cooke to write "A Change Is Gonna Come," a song that would not only rival Dylan's work in its impact, but would also resonate deeply within the African American community. Sam Cooke's creation of "A Change Is Gonna Come" was a bold statement during a time when many black artists were cautious about addressing racial issues too directly in their music for fear of losing their broader, often predominantly white, audiences. But Cooke was undeterred. He understood the power of music as a tool for social change, and he was willing to take the risk. With its lush orchestration and Cooke's soulful, pleading vocals, the song became a beautiful yet stark commentary on the struggles faced by African Americans, while also offering a hopeful vision of a better future. The lyrics of "A Change Is Gonna Come" captured the collective pain and perseverance of the black community. Lines like, "It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky," spoke to the weariness and uncertainty of living under constant threat. While the refrain, "But I know a change is gonna come, oh yes it will," offered a promise of hope and transformation. The song's message was clear. Despite the suffering and injustice, change was on the horizon. However, this legacy of Sam Cooke was tarnished when he met a tragic and controversial end on December 11, 1964. The news of his death shocked the world, not only because it was the sudden loss of a legendary artist, but also because of the murky circumstances surrounding it. According to the official reports, Cooke was shot and killed in an act of self-defense by Bertha Franklin, the manager of the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. However, as details of the incident emerged, questions arose, casting doubt on the official narrative and leaving many to believe that there was more to the story than what was reported. The story, as officially told, begins with Cooke checking into the Hacienda Motel earlier that evening with a woman named Elisa Boyer. According to Boyer's testimony, she had met Cooke at a nightclub, and the two had decided to leave together. They eventually ended up at the Hacienda Motel, where Cooke registered under a false name, Mr. and Mrs. Sam Cooke. Boyer would later claim that Cooke had tried to force himself on her, prompting her to flee the room with most of his clothing, including his pants. She ran to a nearby telephone booth and called the police, reporting that she had been kidnapped. Shortly after Boyer fled, a disturbance occurred at the motel. Bertha Franklin, who was working the night shift as the motel manager, heard loud banging on her office door and the frantic voice of a man demanding to know, "Where's the girl?" Franklin later identified the man as Sam Cooke. According to her police statement, Franklin told Cooke that she was alone in the office, but he continued to bang on the door and demand to be let in. Fearing for her safety, Franklin armed herself with a .22 caliber pistol. Cooke, wearing only a sports coat and one shoe, eventually forced his way into the office, reportedly in a state of agitation. Franklin described a violent struggle in which Cooke grabbed her and demanded to know the whereabouts of Elisa Boyer. During the struggle, Franklin managed to break free and retrieve the gun. She claimed that she shot Cooke in self-defense as he advanced toward her again, despite having already been shot once in the torso. According to Franklin, Cooke's last words were, "Lady, you shot me," spoken in a tone of bewilderment. Even after being shot, Franklin alleged that Cooke attempted to lunge at her again, prompting her to strike him on the head with a broomstick. He collapsed and died on the office floor. Elisa Boyer's statement regarding the events that led to the tragic death of Sam Cooke has been a focal point of controversy and speculation for decades. According to Boyer, she and Cooke met earlier on the evening of December 10, 1964, at a nightclub. Their encounter appeared to be casual at first, two individuals enjoying a night out. However, as the evening progressed, events took a darker turn that would culminate in one of the most mysterious and debated incidents in the history of American music. Boyer claimed that after their initial meeting at the club, Cooke offered to drive her home. However, as they left the nightclub, Boyer's account suggests that Cooke had different intentions. Despite her alleged protests and requests to be taken home, Cooke drove her to the Hacienda Motel instead. This part of her story is critical, as it sets the stage for what Boyer describes as an increasingly threatening situation. According to Boyer, upon their arrival at the motel, Cooke registered for a room under a false name, an indication, some have speculated, of premeditated intent. This action has been interpreted in various ways, from a simple act of privacy-seeking by a famous figure to a more sinister implication that he knew the evening might take an unwelcome turn. Once they are inside the motel room, Boyer's narrative becomes even more troubling. She claimed that Cooke began to make unwanted advances toward her, which quickly escalated into a physical assault. Boyer described her growing fear, stating that she believed Cooke was intent on raping her. This fear, she said, spurred her into action. As Cooke momentarily left her alone to use the bathroom, Boyer saw her chance to escape. In her haste, she grabbed her clothes, which were reportedly scattered across the room, along with some of Cooke's clothing, explaining why he would later be found wearing only a sports coat and one shoe. According to Boyer, she fled the room as quickly as she could, racing out of the motel and into the night. Her actions immediately following her escape have been the subject of much scrutiny. Instead of seeking help from the motel staff or running to a nearby business, Boyer reportedly made her way to a phone booth several blocks away, where she called the police. She informed them that she had been kidnapped, a claim that, if true, would have been a serious accusation against Cooke. However, some have questioned why Boyer did not seek help from the motel's office immediately or why she took Cooke's clothing with her during her escape, actions that seem at odds with someone fleeing a dangerous situation. Etta James found herself at the center of a controversy surrounding the death of her friend and fellow artist, Sam Cooke. Following Cooke's tragic and untimely death on December 11, 1964, James became one of the most vocal critics of the official narrative provided by law enforcement and accepted by the public. Her first-hand account of viewing Cooke's body has fueled speculation and doubt about the true nature of his death for decades. James's description of Cooke's injuries is both shocking and graphic, offering a stark contrast to the official account that painted his death as a case of self-defense by Bertha Franklin, the manager of the Hacienda Motel where Cooke was shot. According to the official story, Cooke had been in a brief but intense altercation with Franklin after reportedly attacking her in a desperate search for the woman he had been with earlier that night, Elisa Boyer. Franklin, fearing for her life, allegedly shot Cooke in the chest, ending his life almost immediately. However, when James viewed Cooke's body at the funeral home, she saw something that disturbed her deeply. In her autobiography, Rage to Survive, James recounted that Cooke's injuries were far more severe than what she had been led to believe. According to James, Cooke's body bore the signs of a brutal beating, inconsistent with the brief struggle described by Franklin and the police. She wrote that Cooke's head was nearly separated from his shoulders, indicating a level of force that could not have been achieved by a single gunshot or a scuffle between Cooke and Franklin. James also observed that Cooke's hands were broken and crushed, injuries that suggested he had been involved in a fierce struggle, possibly trying to defend himself against multiple attackers. Additionally, his nose was mangled, further supporting James's belief that he had been savagely beaten before his death. James's account did not stop at merely describing the injuries. She went on to challenge the plausibility of the official explanation. She expressed her disbelief that a woman armed only with a broomstick could have inflicted such devastating injuries on Cooke, who was a strong and physically fit man in his early 30s. The severity of the wounds led James to suspect that there was more to the story than what the authorities were willing to reveal. She even suggested that the injuries were so extensive that the funeral home had attempted to cover them with makeup, but the effort was not entirely successful. James claimed she could still see the massive bruises on Cooke's head, raising further doubts about the credibility of the official version of events. The autopsy report, which would have been expected to record such significant injuries if they existed, did not corroborate James's observations. This discrepancy has only deepened the mystery surrounding Cooke's death. The lack of official documentation of the injuries James described has led some to dismiss her claims as exaggerated or mistaken. However, others believe that James's account could indicate a cover-up or, at the very least, a failure to fully investigate the circumstances of Cooke's death. One particularly intriguing aspect of the case revolves around the testimony of several diners and acquaintances of Cooke who were present at Martoni's restaurant, a popular Los Angeles hotspot where Cooke spent the evening before his death. According to these witnesses, the narrative presented by Elisa Boyer, the woman who accompanied Cooke to the Hacienda Motel, does not align with what they observed earlier that night. Boyer, in her sworn statement to the police, claimed that she had met Cooke at a nightclub and that he had coerced her into going to the motel against her will, where she feared for her safety. However, the diners at Martoni's provided a different version of events. They reported seeing Boyer and Cooke enjoying themselves at the restaurant, engaging in conversation and drinking together. By all appearances, Boyer seemed to be a willing participant in the evening's activities, showing no signs of distress or reluctance to be in Cooke's company. The discrepancy between Boyer's statement and the observations of those at Martoni's has led to speculation that Boyer's motives that night may not have been as innocent as she claimed. In particular, the diners recalled that Cooke was carrying a significant amount of money, around $5,000, while at the restaurant. This detail has fueled theories that Boyer may have been involved in a scheme to rob Cooke rather than simply trying to escape from a dangerous situation. The fact that Boyer left the motel with most of Cooke's clothing, including his pants, which presumably contained his wallet, has raised further suspicions. Some have suggested that her actions were not those of a frightened woman fleeing a potential assault, but rather those of someone intent on taking advantage of Cooke, possibly with the assistance of others. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the large sum of money Cooke was reportedly carrying that night was never recovered. When the police searched Cooke's Ferrari, they found only a money clip containing $108, a far cry from the $5,000 witnesses claimed he had earlier. This missing money has never been accounted for, leading some to believe that Boyer or someone else involved in the events of that night may have taken it. The theory that Boyer's departure from the motel with Cooke's clothes was part of a robbery has gained traction among those who doubt the official account of Cooke's death. However, there are elements of the case that complicate this theory. Notably, Boyer did contact the police shortly after leaving the motel, making a call from a nearby payphone. If her intention had been to rob Cooke, it seems counterintuitive that she would then alert the authorities, drawing attention to the incident and potentially implicating herself in a crime. This action has led some to argue that Boyer's fear was genuine and that her call to the police was a plea for help rather than a calculated move to cover up a robbery. In addition, many of the questions around the peculiar choice of the Hacienda Motel as the venue for the final hours of Cooke's life. Given Cooke's status as a wealthy and successful celebrity, the decision to check into such an establishment, located 15 miles away from the nightclub where he and Elisa Boyer had spent the evening, has been a point of contention and confusion. This motel, notorious for its unsavory reputation as a hub for prostitution and other illicit activities, stood in stark contrast to the upscale accommodations that Cooke could have easily afforded. The choice of the Hacienda Motel has fueled various theories, suggesting that Cooke was lured there under false pretenses. One of the more prominent theories is that Boyer, the woman who accompanied Cooke, was part of a scheme to rob him. According to this line of thinking, Boyer intentionally led Cooke to the motel, knowing its reputation and possibly having connections with individuals who frequented the establishment. This theory gained some credence from Boyer's subsequent arrest on prostitution charges, which occurred not long after the incident. Moreover, in 1979, Boyer was found guilty of second-degree murder following another shooting, further casting doubt on her credibility and raising suspicions about her involvement in Cooke's death. Adding to the intrigue is the background of Bertha Franklin, the motel manager who shot Cooke. Franklin, like Boyer, had a checkered past, including a history as a prostitute and a prior criminal record. The combination of these two women's histories, coupled with the seedy nature of the motel, has led some to speculate that Cooke was the victim of a calculated setup rather than a simple altercation gone wrong. The presence of two individuals with criminal backgrounds in the scenario only serves to deepen the suspicions of foul play. Inconsistencies in the official account of Cooke's death further complicate the story. Cooke was shot with a .22 caliber pistol, yet the gun that Franklin claimed to have used was a .32 caliber. This discrepancy has raised questions about the weapon used and whether the true circumstances of the shooting were obscured. The missing bullet that reportedly killed Cooke only adds to the confusion. If the bullet had been recovered, it could have provided crucial evidence regarding the weapon used and possibly the intent behind the shooting. Its absence has left a significant gap in the evidence, allowing for speculation to fester. The position of the FBI, or rather their lack of involvement, has been a focal point for conspiracy theorists who believe that more sinister forces could have been at play. The cursory nature of the investigation conducted by the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, has led many to question whether justice was truly served or if crucial evidence was overlooked, either intentionally or due to negligence. The investigation into Cooke's death was widely regarded as superficial, even by the standards of the time. From the outset, the LAPD appeared to take the statements of Bertha Franklin, the motel manager who shot Cooke, and Elisa Boyer, the woman who was with Cooke that night, at face value. Boyer's story, in particular, was only investigated to the extent that it corroborated Franklin's account of events. There was little to no independent inquiry into Boyer's claims, and her background and actions that night were not scrutinized as closely as they might have been had the victim been someone of a different racial or social standing. This has led to significant criticism of the investigation, with many arguing that it was marked by a clear lack of thoroughness. One of the most vocal critics of the investigation at the time was Cooke's friend, Muhammad Ali. Ali, who was then at the height of his career and also deeply involved in the civil rights movement, publicly questioned the integrity of the investigation. He famously remarked, "If Cooke had been Frank Sinatra, the Beatles, or Ricky Nelson, the FBI would be investigating." Ali's comment highlighted the racial disparities in how investigations were conducted and how the deaths of African American celebrities were treated with less urgency and importance compared to their white counterparts. The notion that the FBI would have been involved if the victim had been a white celebrity of similar stature is not without merit. The FBI, during the 1960s, was heavily involved in monitoring and, in some cases, directly intervening in matters concerning high-profile figures, especially those linked to the civil rights movement. This involvement was often justified under the pretext of national security, but in reality, it frequently amounted to efforts to discredit or neutralize prominent African American leaders and influencers. Muhammad Ali himself was under extensive FBI surveillance at the time of Cooke's death. The Bureau considered Ali a potential racial agitator due to his outspoken views on race, his association with the Nation of Islam, and his refusal to be drafted into the Vietnam War. Given Cooke's close friendship with Ali and his own emerging role as a voice for change within the civil rights movement, it is plausible to suggest that Cooke could have been on the FBI's radar as well. However, surveillance is one thing, and direct involvement in a person's death is quite another. Despite the theories that have circulated over the years, there is no formal evidence that Cooke was under FBI surveillance, nor is there any documentation or credible sources that directly link the FBI to his death. The lack of evidence has not stopped speculation, but it does highlight a significant gap between what is suspected and what can be proven. And what do you think about Sam Cooke's death and the suspicions surrounding his tragic death? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.